I hear someone say clean eating. Oh, I'm eating clean. And my first thought is, well, that's super subjective. What does clean eating actually mean to you? And then clean living takes it one step further, or actually multiple steps further. Welcome to the Women Rockin' Midlife Podcast, soulful wellness to elevate your second act. You deserve to deeply love every moment of your life, living your best life with pure joy, optimal health and abundance, with the energy, time, and inner peace to savor experiences with your loved ones and with yourself. Hi, I'm Jen Kunkel. Join me on this soulful journey to complete wellness in midlife and beyond. Yeah, years ago, I got into clean living, right? I wanted to start a garden, and I was researching what kind of seeds because, I wanted it to be as natural as possible, sustainable, saving seeds and regrowing from my own seeds, all of that. So I was researching, and I went down a rabbit hole, and I was like, oh, good grief. I wanted to start a simple garden that was healthy, and who knew I was going to be opening up all these cans of worms and rabbit holes and finding out about all this stuff that is going on that's bad for me. So I started seeing things about, this was over a decade ago, probably. It was probably almost 20 years ago, give or take. And I came across stuff that was talking about how the government was going to be trying to limit your ability to grow your own food. And I thought, okay, that's crazy, whack, whatever. And I actually do see where that was coming from now, 20 years later or 18 years later, whatever it is. Anyway, so I was growing my own food. Well, I was researching the seeds, first of all. Because I thought, I didn't even know what heirloom was, but I thought, oh, that's probably what I want, right? So you get the different varieties and more natural variation, not the like cookie cutter, like you go to Home Depot and buy the seeds that everybody buys that's like super generic or whatever. I wanted like the variations, like purple carrots and orange tomatoes and, the deep purple red tomatoes and yellow and all the different colors and types. And I didn't even know how many different types of seeds there were until I started looking into it. Grab a seed catalog, look online at a seed company and look at how many different seeds there are. It's so interesting and so cool. But anyway, I opened all these cans of worms and went down all these rabbit holes learning about all the different things about food. I think that's when I actually learned about Monsanto and how they patented all these seeds and they're self-terminating. And I really started learning about all of this stuff. Toxins in foods, or I'm calling them toxins, and that's essentially what they are. Contaminants, questionable ingredients, things like that. I'm going to generically use the word toxins, all right? Read my disclaimer. I ended up at some point, so I did start growing my own food. I had 3 beautiful raised beds, 4x8 each. I ended up putting drip irrigation into all of them. It was so cool. I was using a technique called square foot gardening, and it was awesome. I mean, some things were highly successful and some things were huge fails, but it was fun. It was experimental, and I really loved that. And I miss my garden, so now I've been starting to grow things in containers because I went to, I downsized, went to smaller scale, and I'm kind of mobile sometimes. So I'm growing things in containers to make it mobile and make it flexible and keep it kind of manageable. So I'm working on that. Anyway, back then I eventually went vegan, but not because I didn't want to eat meat, because I didn't want to eat animals. It was really more because I didn't like the way that the mass produced animals were being raised. Okay. I also learned, maybe not so much about the seeds, but I kind of went down these rabbit holes, where I learned about toxins in our personal care products and ingredients that we shouldn't be putting on our bodies, or it's not good for us. So I stopped using regular deodorant, antiperspirant, and oh my gosh, that was actually quite the ordeal to try to figure out what to use. And I was experimenting, and some things were semi successful, some things were huge fails. So that was fun, right? So now I actually use a Norwex cloth to clean myself. Those are great. And I use the crystal deodorant, and that pretty much works pretty well. I also stopped using shampoo. I know that sounds weird. I stopped using shampoo like, oh my gosh, probably like 18 years ago, 15 years ago, something. It's been a really long time now. And at first, that was interesting. Yeah, kind of crazy reactions were happening. But now, I forget, that I don't use it. My hair is clean from, I use, most of the time I use water and just a really good massage and brush through or comb through it. I use a wooden comb. And I sometimes will do like baking soda, not very often anymore. I had to do that a lot at the beginning, and a vinegar rinse. So yeah, it took a while to acclimate, and now that's what I do. And occasionally I'll use like a gentle, either a homemade soap. I don't really like using that on my hair. It doesn't obviously rinse out real nicely. So I stick with kind of the baking soda and the vinegar rinse occasionally. And by occasionally, now I mean like maybe once a year or something like that. Anyway, yeah, when you first start, it feels weird. It kind of feels gross, and your oils have to adjust, your oils in your scalp, because you've been using all these detergents on them and stuff. Anyway, all right, so I digress. I went down a rabbit hole there. I just think it's so interesting that I thought it was an experiment. It was definitely an experiment. And I didn't think it would work, I thought, yeah, everybody thinks you need all these things that we are told we need, and maybe we don't. So anyway, we have so many toxins in our environment everywhere. So let's just think about a few things, all right? You have ingredients in food that are maybe not really food. You have pesticides on our food. You have GMOs that I know some people say are perfectly safe. I don't think we've had them around long enough. And I know other people say, oh, we've been genetically modifying organisms for decades and eons, since the beginning of time, because when you graft a tree, or when you cross pollinate, you're actually genetically modifying. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about lab, man-made, intervened, genetically modified in a lab, by pulling out little, tweezing out some DNA and putting it somewhere else, or chromosomes, or whatever they do. And that's what I'm talking about. Lab grown meat, E. coli, other bacteria that gets in the food because of the way that it's processed and grown. Packaging can have contaminants. Remember BPA, right? I mean, most things are made without that now, but all the years that we had that in our food, it was leaching from the packaging into our food. There are so many ingredients that are legal in the US and they're illegal in other countries. Just look it up. Just do a search for ingredients that are legal in the US and illegal in other countries, or whatever shortened version of that you want to do, and you are going to come up with so much stuff. there's a lot, right? So it's not just in the food, too. Like I mentioned, it's in the personal care and cleaning products. I used to use this resource called the Environmental Working Group's website, and you can look up different ingredients that are in personal care products. I haven't used it for a while, so it might be cleaning products too. I don't recall, but it's definitely like in your makeup, your skincare. You can look up some brands directly and you can see what their rating is for it and some details about why it might be questionable, why there might not be data, etc. So I would look things up in there to I was trying to find products that I was comfortable using, and ultimately I ended up just going super simple and eliminating some completely. Like I said, I don't wear makeup. I do not use shampoo, conditioner, no hair products. And I started using these Norwex cloths instead of using soap so much. I do wash my hands with soap, but in the shower I use my Norwex cloth, and it's great with the crystal mineral deodorant. So that to me is moving towards clean living. Even thinking about other feminine products, I had switched to using a silicone cup, and I know this sounds weird, the reusable cloth panty liners. Well, with the cup, it wasn't usually needed too much. But anyway, I don't have that need anymore, thankfully. Yay. So if you do, I highly recommend a silicone cup. It takes a little bit to get used to, but oh my gosh, it seems so much more hygienic in the end, and, cleaner, less issues with odors, right? Yeah. So humans always seem to be working against nature, but my big thing is we are part of nature realistically, right? So how can we come into more harmony with nature instead of always adding all of these unnatural things to our bodies, in and on our bodies and our food, in the way that we grow our food? Look around. If you're in the city, you see basically concrete jungle, right? There's concrete, there's buildings, there's streets, there's the asphalt, there's a lot of nature is being covered up and blocked, and you're not having access to it. Even one thing I also like to do is grounding and find a spot that is natural. In the summer, I go away from the city up to the mountains very frequently, and this year I've been doing that so much. I've been going up with my mom. We're staying up for a couple weeks. We're coming back to the city for a couple weeks. It's great. You get that nature. I love walking in nature. I love being in nature. I love doing yoga in nature. So even if you're in the city, find some time to be in nature. And my mom actually is studying this holistic health coach course. And one of the things that they did is that they recommend is to stand in dirt barefoot for 10 minutes a day, which, that's grounding. It's not something new, but she specifically was doing that recently. So it's top of my mind. Yeah. So find a spot where you can go and connect with nature, even if it's just a little area in your yard or in a park nearby or something, and actually stand on the grass barefoot, stand in some dirt barefoot. Gravel, if that's all you have. Fake grass, I don't think so. You'll burn the crap out of your feet. We have some fake grass, and I'm not a fan. It gets so hot when the sun hits it. Oh my gosh, it's unbearable. It's so funny. When my great nephew was, 2 or 3, he was over and they had gotten the fake grass in the backyard recently, and he was just learning how to walk, so he was probably only about 2, not really talking yet, and he stepped barefoot from the concrete into the grass, and he started to step and he felt it, and he looked up at me, he pulled his foot back, and he looked at me like, what is that? It was so cute. Anyway, I tease my mom about that because I don't really like the fake grass. And a reminder that little guy did that. It's pretty funny. Anyway, so humans seem to always be working against nature, right? We're building all this technology, all these buildings, the fake grass, like we can't even just have real grass, save the water. And I have a theory about that too. No idea if there's anything to back this up, but just a thought that I had, something I question now is so I live in Las Vegas, very, very, water conservation because it's the desert, of course. Well, I wonder if all of this changed to fake grass, desert landscaping, bigger patios or whatever, more concrete, more rock, less natural ground, I wonder if that actually makes the drought situation kind of worse. Or I saw something about I don't even remember what it is, just popped in my head right now. But I do remember seeing this a documentary show or something where I believe they were actually growing more to kind of change it sort of would transform the immediate environment. So it got me thinking, so maybe if we all had grass, we would actually get more rain and it would change the environment to support what was there. So I don't know, I didn't dig too deeply into that, but it's a question, right? I ask these questions and I start to think about it and I'll look into it at some point. Just thoughts, right? So I want to talk about how we go against nature as humans by agricultural practices and growing our food and producing our food, not just growing our food, but producing it in general. So we have companies that are manipulating seeds so that they are not natural anymore. They do things like pesticide resistance. They're self-terminating, which means that the seeds that come in the plant will not actually regrow another plant like nature intends, right? So that's about money, right? That's about owning the company, owning that seed. And the problem is with the self-terminating is it could go and contaminate a neighboring farmer's seed and their seeds can no longer be collected. If that self-terminating factor integrates into the plant, so pollen floats around in the air, bees take it around. So if it gets transferred to a neighboring farm, it could affect their plants and maybe they're growing an organic non-GMO or whatever. And now it's not that anymore. The next generation isn't that anymore. One thing, it's been contaminated by a patented seed, which historically has led to lawsuits. But also, if it takes on that self-terminating factor, even if that was all it took on, now those seeds are no longer regenerating. And what if that happens to all of our seeds eventually, all of our plants? Everything is self-terminating and you cannot get that seed naturally anymore. And then you rely only on this company's seeds and you have to repurchase new seeds every single year. Everybody does. And then that's against nature. It's not the way nature intended. Nature intended you can get the seeds from the plants, right? And yes, I know that our agricultural processes haven't been very natural for eons. That doesn't mean that we don't go back to that, right? So agricultural practices also deplete and kill soil. Plowing is not the natural way, right? Having just one crop or even alternating two crops is not the ideal way to produce food. It's an ideal way to make money producing food, at least short term. It's like all of these things are short-sighted thinking. So I was watching a documentary and I don't even remember which one. And there was a guy a farmer who ended up deciding to get out. He's like, all right, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the one who takes the risk of not doing things the way that everybody says we're supposed to be, because he wasn't getting crops. Actually, for him, I believe it was prompted by 1 or 2 years of failed crops. And he was like, okay, I got to do something different, or I'm going to, this isn't going to work. I'm going to lose everything. So he ended up multiplying his yield and his profits by working more with nature, by diversifying the crops that he was growing, by having animals and integrating all of it. And now he goes around and teaches people. And I know there's other people who do this too. This is one I saw recently. I don't remember the guy's name. I don't remember the documentary. But I was kind of actually surprised, because I also had heard that, the smaller organic farms, they don't really make enough money. And I'm thinking maybe that's not true, according to what this guy said, or it can be done if you do the right thing. And then now we have lab grown food, right? That's another thing that to me is working against nature. And I know they have their justifications for it. And honestly, just long story short, I don't really know if I buy their justifications. So I believe that we can work with nature and facilitate productive options. Maybe that's not the most profitable, but I don't care about that. I think we need to worry, when it comes to food, I think we need to be more concerned about most nutritious, most sustainable, and definitely something that you can save seeds and you can regrow from the plant is more sustainable than if you have to go back to a company and keep buying new seeds because they self-terminate. Just logic right there, right? Our bodies are designed to work with nature. I think we forget that, and we believe that our bodies need outside assistance or intervention. Maybe we just need the outside remedy because we used or ate the product that was changed and moved more away from nature, right? So we're creating this cycle, the self-perpetuating cycle. We eat the manufactured foods that have the non-food ingredients in them that our body doesn't process, and then we need interventions, medical interventions to fix whatever problems that causes. And yeah, I can see how that's a great cycle for the moneymakers, right? The food producers, the medical system. You're buying this food that maybe is contributing to disease, and then you go into the medical system. Yeah. I can see how money drives a lot of stuff, right? Ingredients are in our food that put us at risk for disease, overloading our filtering organs. They simply don't process in our bodies. And why? Well, bottom line, like I said, money. Sometimes these ingredients are cheaper. Sometimes they're cheaper because the government subsidizes them. And worse, some of them are designed to make food addictive. So we keep going back for more. MSG, high fructose corn syrup, all of those things. So I found a list of common U.S. foods that are banned in other countries. There's probably multiple lists. So I will include a link in the show notes, and you can do a search yourself and you can look at stuff. So what do we do? What do we do about this? Some people believe we need to regulate these things out of practice. Well, I am not one of those people because I believe that our reliance on government makes us lazy. And I believe we need to take personal responsibility. We need to learn and educate and cultivate a society that makes conscious choices about what we put in and on our body, and that we, the individual, take responsibility for understanding those choices. Now, that's not to say I think that all the manufacturers should just keep doing what they're doing. No. Consumer pressure to change, that seems more effective than regulation anyway. And the regulations are made sometimes by people who used to work in those companies and may be going back to them, or maybe planning to go back to them. And they want to be on somebody's good side. Or worse, maybe somebody's getting kickbacks. I don't know. What I do know is that if you take personal responsibility, you do research, you understand what's in the products you buy, food, personal care, cleaning products, everything. And you start to do everything in your power to at least start using products that work with your body instead of putting a strain on it. Baby steps, you can do one thing at a time. I'm not even perfect with doing that. I was probably better in the past and went backwards, and it's an ebb and flow. And I know it's difficult to do in modern society where it's so easy to just grab something that isn't good for us. And some things are worse than others. Like in my mind, it helps me just to behave as if certain things don't exist. Like a lot of fast food places that I know every single thing, even their so-called healthy options, are not. They probably have things and additives in them that I don't want in my body on a regular basis. Maybe not at all. I just act like those places do not exist. And if I have to eat out, or not have to, because there's no have to, if I decide that I'm going to eat out, or I'm eating on the run, or I'm out and about and I didn't prepare something with me and I'm hungry, I'm starving, like I'm really, really hungry, then I'm going to do my best to pick something that is, the lesser of all the evils, I guess you would say. So you don't have to be perfect. Take steps, do your best, keep doing better. If you eat a 7-Eleven chili dog every once in a while, don't beat yourself up about it, and just do better next time, or have a plan in place, or have snacks in your car, or whatever. Keep learning. Keep taking steps to eliminate or replace the toxic choices, okay? So we're going to make it real, right? Download the companion worksheet. Write down 3 products that you use, 2 that you suspect are not great for your health, and 1 that you think is very healthy. Now research those products and decide if you're going to keep using them or if you're going to swap them out. You can use the EWG database for any personal care products. Download the companion worksheet. I'm going to walk you through it, and I'll put a link in the show notes. Thanks for joining me today. I will see you next time. Let's rock this midlife thing.